Hello class and welcome to our second video in this chapter. In this video we're going to talk about joint costs and how we will allocate joint costs. So joint costs are costs that are associated with two or more products whenever you come about in the manufacturing process. The book gives the example of a lumber company. So going in and cutting down the trees and cutting up the wood, and it's going to come out, and it's going to come out as grade A lumber or grade B lumber. Okay, so it is the same process and everything's going through the same process, but it's producing two or more different outputs. Okay, when it gets to the point where they kind of go their separate ways, that is called the split off point. So we are going to be concerned with the cost associated with the items from the time production starts with it up until it gets to that split off point and then goes its separate ways. Okay, so we are going to allocate those costs. There's two separate methods we are going to deal with today. There's the net realizable value method and the physical quantities method. The net realizable value method, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what the selling price is at the split off point. And then we are going to, by ratios of find the total and then find the total sales value of all the products produced, and then divide each one and find a ratio, and then allocate that amount of joint cost to each one. If, for example, there isn't a net realizable value at that point because it needs to be processed further before it has a value, you have to estimate the net realizable value by taking its final sales value minus what it costs to produce further, and that is what its estimated net realizable value is at that time. That works a little bit easier, and it makes a little more sense when we start working through some problems. On the physical quantities method, it is used for basically when something is highly volatile and the prices change quickly. Something like oil and gas companies, they'll be more concerned about the quantities that are instead of the final market value of the end product, since it fluctuates so much. Okay, so whenever we're doing the physical quantities method, it's the same type of process. Only we're going to ignore the sales value, and we're just going to look at the quantity produced and then allocate the cost on the ratios on the percent of how much was produced of each product. Some other things that come up in this process are called byproducts. There's two methods to deal with byproducts, and we're only going to be concerned with one of them. Okay, so method one, you subtract the net realizable value. So whatever you can go out and sell a byproduct first. Let me explain. If you're making two separate things and you're making that wood, okay, and you're cutting it up and you get the grade A lumber and your grade B lumber, and those are your two main products that you're going to sell. Well, a byproduct of that is sawdust. Okay, that comes out. There is a use for sawdust, and you can package it up and you can sell sawdust, but it's not the intention of what you were cutting down the lumber for. Okay, so none of the costs are going to ever get associated to producing the sawdust. All costs are going to go into both of the lumber parts. For the byproduct, we can either subtract the cost out of the selling price out of the total cost that we're going to allocate to everything. So it's basically a wash, it's no income, and the costs are just gone. So it basically ends up zero on the net income. That's method one. But the method two, just ignore it. And then when it goes on the income statement, whatever you sell the sawdust for, it becomes other income. Now you will have a homework question where the byproduct actually has to get eliminated. And there's a cost associated with eliminating the byproduct because maybe it's hazardous or toxic. If there's a cost to eliminating the byproduct, you have to add that cost back in to the joint cost that you're allocating between the products that were actually produced and available to move on in the production process. And the final thing that is in this chapter is when we get to that split off point, you have to decide sometimes whether you want to sell the product at that point in time or whether it should be processed further. And the way to decide that is you're just going to compare the profit to what you would make then to the profit to what you would make if you process further. So you look at your sales. Basically, if your revenue increases more than your costs, you're going to want to go ahead and process it further because it's going to increase your income by making the product further. Okay. So those are kind of the basics and the theory behind what we're doing here. It's pretty simple and straightforward process. I'm going to work through two problems with you, And I know I've had some people talk to me about maybe not being able to see the board good, so I tried to devise something here and see if this works a little bit better. So give me a minute to set up my board here and go ahead and get your handouts ready. We are going to work through problem number 3. It starts with Euclid Corporation using the net realizable value method, and we're going to assign cost to a couple products, and we are going to do problem 4A only, which deals with process costing. Okay, so if you want to grab those sheets while I move my computer around a little bit and get a little bit closer to the board, we'll work through those. Okay, so question 3 reads Euclid Corporation processes a patented chemical P1 and produces 2 outputs, P11 and P12. In August, the cost to process P1 for 144,000 for materials and 288,000 for conversion. Okay, so our costs were 144. So our total cost to joint costs that we need to allocate is 432,000. The problem goes on to tell us what the sales value were at the split off point. Okay. So what you do here, since we have the sales value, sales value of the P11 was 640,000, while the P12 was 160 for a total of 800,000. When you take them out, you find that 80% of the costs are going to go to the P11 and 20% of the costs are going to go to the P12. We have our total costs. That would be our total cost for the P11. P12, same process, 432,000 times 20%, we get an answer of 86,400, and our total costs are assigned. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You find your value at the split off point, whatever you can sell it for at that point in time, and then you just find the ratio of how much gets to each product and apply it to the total cost. Okay, so On question number 4, we are going to do the physical quantities method. The following question relates to Kyle Company. It manufactures 3 products, Ka, Kb, and Kc from a joint process. The joint product costs were $189,000. Additional information as follows. No calculations on this one. Our joint costs are given to us. That is how much we are going to need to allocate. So when we look, remember when we're doing the physical quantities method, that's what it's asking for in part A here. What was the total cost of product Ka using the physical quantities? We are going to ignore the sales value, and we're just going to look at the quantities. It is the same process we did when we were allocating it through the sales value, but only we're looking at the physical quantities. So you can see that Ka produced 84, Kb 60,000, Kc 24,000. So we get 168,000 total that were produced. The question specifically is asking what is the cost of Ka. So that is the only one I'm going to figure out. Ka was 84,000 units of 168, so that is exactly 50%. So Ka the question does say that there's going to be an additional 54,000 cost. So it's asking what is the total cost of product Ka, including the 54,000 in product further. So it's going to get 50% of the joint costs. That's what we were allocating here. So we allocate 50% of the joint cost, and then we are going to add the $54,000 onto it. Okay, and that is going to make your total product cost of $148,500. And just a little note here, you'll see if processed further, should they process Ka further? Well, their sales value if processed further is 330,000, and the sales value of split off was 240. So they're going to increase their revenue by 90,000. The additional costs are only 54,000. That is a net increase in income. So the answer to that is yes, you should process further. Okay, guys, that is all I have for the end of this chapter. Go ahead and finish up the homework. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Good luck.